The Human Abstract by William Blake. Pity would be no more if we did not make somebody poor, and mercy no more could be if all were as happy as we. And mutual fear brings peace, till the selfish loves increase. Then cruelty knits a snare, and spreads his baits with care. He sits down with his holy fears, and waters the ground with tears. Then humility takes its root underneath his foot, soon spreads the dismal shade of mystery over his head, and the caterpillar and fly feed on the mystery, and it bears the fruit of deceit, ruddy and sweet to eat, and the raven his nest has made in its thickest shade. The gods of the earth and sea sought through nature to find this tree, but their search was all in vain. There grows one in the human brain. Structurally, the first thing you may notice is that the poem is made up of 6 stanzas. Now, the stanzas themselves are considered quatrains because it is a stanza of 4 lines. So, stanza number 1, or quatrain number 1, 2, 3, quatrain number 4, 5, and if we scroll down, quatrain number 6. And within each of the quatrains, or 4-line stanza, there are 2 rhyming couplets, following an AABB pattern, except for the 4th quatrain, which deviates from the pattern as it has no particular rhyme scheme. So if we look at the first quatrain here, pity would be no more if we did not make somebody poor, and mercy no more could be if all were as happy as we. So more and poor obviously rhyme, as do be and we. So here you get an AABB pattern. But if we take a look at the 4th quatrain, soon spreads the dismal shade of mystery over his head, and the caterpillar and fly feed on the mystery. Now here obviously shade, head don't rhyme, and fly and mystery don't rhyme, so it does not follow the AABB pattern that the rest of the poem follows. A third noticing you may have is syllable count. And over on the side I have numbered all the syllables, and for the majority the poem follows a 6 to 8 syllable count. However, if you look at the second line here, the second line has 9 syllables, which the reader may notice without counting because it doesn't follow a tight grouping number of syllables. Or if you look at the 5th quatrain, you might see 6, 7, 8, and those are all pretty close together. But here, this one has 5 syllables, which is pretty far from the median number of 7. Overall, if you're looking at tone and connotation, you may notice that the poem is didactic, or it's meant to teach a lesson. That means it's intended to teach a life lesson or come across with an abstract idea that a reader may need to think about. In addition, by using words such as deceit, vain, selfish, fears, and tears throughout the poem, it gives the poem an overall negative connotation, like poor, mercy no more could be, peace, selfish, cruelty, all words that have a negative connotation. And even though some words may have a positive connotation, the majority is negative. And finally, something else you might notice about structure is stressed and unstressed syllables. Now, in this particular poem, all the stressed syllables are in bold and all the unstressed are in regular text. So, reading through the first couple of quatrains, pity no more could be if we did not make somebody poor, and mercy no more could be if all were as happy as we. And mutual fear brings peace, till the selfish loves increase. You may notice that the bolded syllables sound higher in pitch They're more drawn out and volume gets louder. That's typical of stressed syllables, whereas unstressed syllables aren't as high in volume or maybe lower in pitch and aren't as stressed. Stressed and unstressed syllables give a reader an idea or a sense of rhythm and tone and how fast or slow a poem should go. So pity would be no more if we did not make somebody poor. Would maybe be read a little bit faster because of the high number of stressed syllables in those lines, whereas something like if all were as happy as we would be a little bit slower because of the lack of stressed or drawn out syllables. In terms of content, though, in the first few quatrains, the author makes reference to the 4 virtues: mercy, pity, peace, and love. And those virtues are really stressed in the Christian faith and really have a lot to do with Christianity, which is the religion at the time that the poem was written. And without the 4 virtues, poverty, sadness, tragedy, horror cannot exist, or cruelty cannot exist without the 4 virtues. So each have an interdependent relationship. Therefore, the 4 virtues represent a kind of sympathy, which brings reference to the Christian belief, again with the 4 virtues being a thing of Christianity. They bring reference to the Christian belief that God takes pity on his people. And with the reference to Christianity, God's pity, and the reference to a tree in the last few quatrains, with the dismal shade of mystery over his head, the fruit of deceit, the raven in his nest, and sought through nature to find this tree, one can assume that there is a biblical allusion to the story of Adam and Eve, if you have the religious background. And for those unfamiliar with the book of Genesis, the link. And the story of Adam and Eve is basically the creation of human life and the creation of humanity. So God created Adam and Eve and placed them in the Garden of Eden. And he gave them permission to eat fruit from any tree in the garden except the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Now, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is basically a tree with the fruit that would give them the knowledge to know what is sin and what is bad thing, or what are bad things that exist in the world, and which they're completely unaware of at the time. And the knowledge of good and evil itself, the knowing what is right and wrong and knowing what sin is and how it works, is represented by the raven. And the raven historically represents a messenger. Okay? And the raven's spiritual powers or animal powers are secrets and hidden knowledge, which represents and is metaphorical of the knowledge that Adam and Eve did not possess of sin and what was wrong. So that's represented by the raven in the poem. The knowledge of good and evil further plants the metaphorical tree in the human brain with humility at its roots, mystery its foliage or leaves or canopy, and deceit as its fruit. First, humility. Humility takes its root underneath his foot, because like the root of a tree preserves the tree and provides nutrients for its stability, humility, according to Psalms, preserves the soul and tranquility. So like a root is to the tree, humility is to the human soul. Second, mystery. Metaphorically, the canopy or foliage alludes to the divine mystery or God. And God, as trees canopy shades from the sun, God shades people from the knowledge the human mind could never know or understand. And that's according to Psalms, Scripture frequently describes God as one who knows all things, even that which the human mind could never know or finds incomprehensible. So like the canopy of a tree shades us from the sun, God shades his people from ideology that they could never comprehend. Third, the fruit of the tree, deceit. And in the poem, it's described as ruddy and sweet to eat, otherwise stated, unavoidable, tempting, or as this would put it, irresistible. Mankind therefore cannot help but eat the fruit which grows on the tree of cruelty and religion, as Adam and Eve could not help but eat the fruit that grew on the forbidden tree. Because of this, man, simply by nature, cannot ignore the temptation of deceit, in this case, sin. This metaphorical tree of humility, mystery, and deceit reinforces the narrator's thesis that the four virtues, mercy, pity, peace, and love, cannot exist without poverty, sadness, war, and sin. Because going back to the first quatrain, pity would be no more if we did not make somebody poor. So this right here is showing the interdependence between pity and poor. So we take pity on someone who's poor because they are poor, and if they weren't poor, we wouldn't take pity on them. So that again shows the interdependence between the ideologies. And finally, the author William Blake concludes in the sixth quatrain by describing man's search for the tree to unlock the true nature of being, sought through nature to find this tree. So this is describing man's search through nature to find this tree. They failed because the tree does not grow in nature out in the world. They could not find the basis and the root of this ideology because, as it states, the tree grows in the human mind. So this is not a physical force, but an ideology, something that a tree, metaphorically, that is planted in your mind, something that you think and you feel, but you can't physically see, making it abstract and of human nature, henceforth the human abstract. So if we take that ideology and read through just one more time, and maybe we can apply some of what we've learned to the poem. Pity would be no more if we did not make somebody poor, and mercy no more could be if all were as happy as we, and mutual fear brings peace, till the selfish loves increase, then cruelty knits a snare, and spreads his baits with care. He sits down with his holy fears, and waters the ground with tears, then humility takes its root underneath his foot, soon spreads the dismal shade of mystery over his head, and the caterpillar and fly feed on the mystery, ruddy and sweet to eat, and the raven his nest has made in its thickest shade. The gods of the earth and sea sought through nature to find this tree, but their search was all in vain. There grows one in the human brain.